It started like any other Tuesday in Harmony Grove, our little slice of suburban heaven tucked away in the rolling hills outside Atlanta. The lawns were manicured to HOA perfection. American flags fluttered at exactly the approved height. And those little white signs on every corner reminded you this was a community-first place. But behind the white picket fences and smiling porch waves lived the real machine, Gina March, our newly crowned HOA president. She had the pearl necklace, the pastel blazer, the voice that dripped honey while her eyes tallied every blade of grass out of place. We're modernizing for the families, she'd coo at meetings, as if she hadn't just fined Mrs. Delgado $250 for the wrong shade of petunias. I was Lila Voss, the woman at the end of Maple Lane who kept her head down and her coffee black. 12 years ago, when the developer first broke ground, I was the consultant who built the Harmony Core, the proprietary smart system that ran every common area nerve in the neighborhood. Automatic gates that actually knew resident plates. Irrigation that balanced water pressure so no one flooded their basements. Pool heaters that never spiked the electric bill. Street lights that dimmed intelligently at dusk. Security cams that fed straight to the emergency app without a single glitch. My company, Vossline Systems, held the license, and I'd sat in the original charter meetings helping Harold Lynn, the developer, write the governing documents, including that quiet little masterpiece buried on page 39, Clause 18C. Most residents never read past the pool rules. Gina definitely hadn't. She swept in 6 months ago on a wave of cost savings and future-proofing. Her first town hall was a masterclass in corporate speak wrapped in neighborly charm. Friends, our legacy system is holding us back, she announced from the podium, waving a glossy brochure for CloudGuard Pro. We can slash dues by 20% with their AI dashboard. No more outdated tech. The crowd clapped. Who wouldn't want cheaper fees and a shiny app? I sat in the back row, sipping my coffee, quietly noting every promise. Their AI couldn't handshake with our embedded kernel. Their cloud couldn't read the biometric anchors I'd wired into the gate controllers after that 2018 storm knocked out half the neighborhood. I sent the board one polite email. Any migration requires unanimous trustee approval and full credential escrow per Clause 18C. Gina replied with a single thumbs-up emoji and the words, "Noted. Thanks for your input." Then nothing. 2 weeks later, the board voted 3-2 to terminate the Vossline maintenance contract effective immediately. For the greater good, Gina smiled in the group chat. I didn't argue in the meeting. I didn't post on the HOA Facebook page. I simply replied, understood, and went home. But inside I was already 3 steps ahead. Clause 18C wasn't a suggestion. It was the iron ring. The firmware kernel was licensed to Vossline. Not the HOA. The root access was biometrically locked to my ocular signature. No duplicates. No generic admin fallback. Try to force a takeover without the full escrow ceremony, and the system would treat it as a threat, drop into protective lockdown, and start isolating every subsystem. I'd build it that way on purpose after watching too many cheap vendors brick perfectly good infrastructure. Gina thought she was firing a contractor. She had no idea she was about to yank the lungs out of 400 homes. The first week after the vote, nothing dramatic happened. I still had passive logs piped to my secure server. I watched their CloudGuard techs show up in matching polo shirts, hauling tablets and looking like they just stepped off a TED stage. They strutted around the community center like they owned the place. We'll have this migrated in 48 hours, their lead guy boasted at the gatehouse. Gina nodded proudly, already posting victory selfies. Big things happening in Harmony Grove. Modern HOA. I almost felt bad for the techs. Almost. Because I knew what they were about to discover. our grounding controls didn't speak their language. The quantum clock dependencies on the gate motors weren't in any public API. And the emergency override shell would rather go dark than let an unauthorized root touch it. Neighbors started noticing little things first. Mrs. Patel's sprinklers ran all night on Thursday, turning her rose bed into a swamp. The streetlights on Elm flickered like a disco at 2 a.m. Someone's Ring doorbell started blaring false motion alerts every time a squirrel sneezed. Gina blamed transition glitches and promised it would be fixed by Friday. I logged every denial, every heat spike, every failed handshake. Still silent, still patient. Because people like Gina always mistake quiet for weak. They think experience is baggage. They forget that when the lights stay on and the gates open on time, someone invisible is keeping the voltage steady. And when you cut that someone loose without reading the fine print, you'd better hope they didn't wire the fuse box. By the end of week 2, Gina was sending increasingly frantic group texts. Team, almost there. CloudGuard is the future. Meanwhile, my phone stayed quiet except for the soft pings from my private server showing the system quietly preparing its immune response. I poured another cup of coffee, leaned back on my porch, and waited. The storm was coming, and Gina had just invited it inside. The termination crew showed up on a perfect Saturday morning, the kind of day HOA presidents love for photo ops. Gina's white SUV led the parade, followed by 2 security guys from the new vendor and a nervous CloudGuard contractor pushing a wheeled case like it contained state secrets. They didn't knock. They marched straight up my driveway like they were serving a warrant. Gina didn't even try to soften it. She stood there in her Sunday best blazer, phone in hand, and read from the script like she was firing a barista. Effective immediately, your services with Harmony Grove HOA are terminated. Please surrender all access credentials and system documentation. Her voice had that practiced politeness, the same tone she used when she fined people for unsightly holiday lights. I kept my hands on my coffee mug a second longer, saved the last diagnostic report on my tablet, then looked up calm as ever. I'm really sorry, I said, but I can't do that. Gina blinked. Not because she didn't hear me, but because I didn't flinch, didn't raise my voice, didn't give her the tearful scene she clearly wanted for her next Facebook post. She tried the smirk next, the one she saved for residents who dared question her rules. You're no longer under contract. Lila, I don't think you understand the situation. I met her eyes. Oh, I understand better than you do. I unhooked the lanyard from my belt loop, held it up like an offering, but I didn't hand it to her. Instead, I stepped past her and gave it to the older gentleman in the back, the trustee liaison who actually read documents. You want to verify the credential tag, I told him quietly. His eyes narrowed, then widened when he scanned the chip. This is tagged under Clause 18C jurisdiction. The silence that followed was delicious. Gina's smile froze mid-smirk. The security guys shifted uncomfortably. The CloudGuard kid looked like he'd just realized his tablet was now a very expensive paperweight. I kept walking down the driveway like it was any other Saturday, like the neighborhood wasn't already starting to shift beneath their feet. Behind me, I heard the liaison's voice drop an octave. Ma'am, this ID triggers protocol. We need to pause the migration. Gina laughed, actually laughed, like it was the funniest thing she'd heard all week. This is ridiculous. The board voted. We have full authority. The liaison didn't laugh back. He just handed her the laminated charter packet he'd pulled from his folder and tapped the heading near the bottom. Clause 18C. Infrastructure sovereignty. Any change to critical systems requires unanimous trustee approval and documented credential escrow. You skip both. Gina's face went the color of her blazer. She snatched the packet, scanned it, then looked at me like I'd personally insulted her grandmother. You can't hold the entire community hostage over some dusty old claws. I didn't turn around. I'm not holding anything. Gina, you tripped at the moment you issued the termination without following the process I documented 6 times. Back at the community center, their fancy new dashboard started flashing red. Unauthorized termination detected. Infrastructure protocol 18C triggered. Across the neighborhood, systems began their quiet rebellion in perfect sequence. The main gate motors whirred once, then locked into containment mode. No entry. No exit without manual override that only existed in my firmware. Streetlights on every block dropped to emergency grid-safe levels, casting long shadows that made the perfect lawns look suddenly eerie. The community pool's heater cut out mid-cycle, sending the water temperature plummeting while the filtration system sealed itself. Irrigation valves in the common parks clicked shut one by one, leaving the grass to brown under the Georgia sun. Security cams went offline except for the ones recording every failed login attempt by the CloudGuard team. Gina's phone started exploding with texts. Gate won't open for my grocery delivery. Why are the lights off at noon? My app says system locked. What did you do? She stood in the parking lot waving her arms like a conductor having a meltdown. This is sabotage. Call the vendor. Reboot everything. The CloudGuard kid just stared at his tablet, thumbs hovering uselessly. I can't even get shell access. It's like the system buried a root protocol that overrides everything we installed. I was already back on my porch by then, watching the green heartbeat ping from my private server, legacy credential active. Override integrity intact. Source, Vossline Systems. I didn't smile. This wasn't revenge. It was exactly what I designed the system to do when arrogance tried to delete continuity. Gina spent the rest of the day in emergency texts and frantic calls, promising residents temporary inconvenience while she personally oversaw the fix. Neighbors who'd cheered her modernization speech 2 weeks ago were now posting in the group. My kids can't get to the pool. How are we supposed to get home from work? The pettiness I'd watched her dish out for months was coming home to roost. And she was discovering that the community she claimed to love only worked because someone she dismissed actually understood how. By sunset, the whole neighborhood was whispering. Gina's modern future had turned the lights out, and everyone was starting to wonder if the old legacy lady they'd ignored might have been the only one keeping the place breathing. The complaints rolled in like a Georgia thunderstorm. By Monday, the HOA Facebook group was a war zone. Gina, my gate still won't open. My babysitter is stuck outside. The sprinklers are off, and my lawn looks like death. Pool is freezing, and the app just says lockdown mode. What is going on? Gina tried damage control with her signature move, a 7 p.m. emergency Zoom she titled Transition Update for Our Valued Neighbors. She appeared on screen in full HOA president armor, blazer, pearls, fake smile dialed to 11. Friends, I know this has been frustrating, but CloudGuard assures me we're hours away from full restoration. Some outdated code from the previous contractor is causing temporary hiccups. She even threw in a dig. We all want progress, right? Sometimes that means letting go of the past. I watch from my couch. Unmute off. Sipping coffee while the chat exploded. Someone typed, Lila Voss built that system. Maybe we should ask her? Gina's smile twitched. Lila is no longer involved. We're moving forward, but the seed was planted. Residents started remembering the times I'd quietly fix things the night the big storm hit and the gate stayed open for emergency vehicles. The summer the pool stayed perfect while every other neighborhood's turned green. They started demanding me. Lila, any advice? I replied the same way every time. Check your governing documents. Clause 18C explains everything. Gina doubled down. She called a special board meeting, closed session, of course, and tried to spin the narrative. I wasn't invited, but my passive logs caught every word because the system was still listening. This is clearly sabotage, she hissed. We need to sue Vossline for breach. The treasurer, bless him, actually read the charter out loud. Gina, the clause says we can't remove the originator without escrow. We never did the ceremony. Legally, we're exposed. You could hear her pearl necklace clicking as she fidgeted. Then we'll pay whatever it takes to make it go away. But we are not going back to that woman. Outside the meeting, neighbors were starting to turn. Mrs. Patel showed up at my door with a plate of cookies. I voted for her modernization plan. Now my roses are dead. If you can fix this, I just smiled. It's not broken, Mrs. Patel. It's protected. Gina's next move was classic Karen. She started a petition in the group, support the new system, say no to legacy holdouts, and personally messaged every resident with a sob story about greedy former contractors holding the community hostage. A few bought it. Most started noticing the pattern. Every time her CloudGuard techs tried another workaround, another subsystem dropped offline. The park pavilion lights died during a kid's soccer game. The emergency alert system sent phantom flood warnings at 3 a.m., waking half the neighborhood. Gina blamed solar flares. Residents blamed her. By Wednesday, the tension was thick enough to cut with a HOA fine. Gina cornered me in the community center parking lot after a tense board vote. She was sweating through her blazer, voice low and venomous. You think you're so clever with your little claws. But this neighborhood will remember who caused all this pain. I looked her dead in the eye. The neighborhood will remember who ignored the rules they signed. I documented every warning. You initialed them. She laughed bitterly. Enjoy your moment. Lila, when the city inspector comes Friday for the stormwater compliance review, we'll have this fixed and you'll be history. I didn't answer. I just nodded and walked away, because I already knew what Friday would bring. The city inspector wasn't some minor bureaucrat. He was the guy who decided whether Harmony Grove kept its coveted smart community grant and insurance discount. Without functional emergency systems, containment protocols, and verified logs, the whole thing would be denied. Gina had scheduled the inspection herself to show off her modern upgrade. She had no idea the system she'd tried to delete was about to perform its final, most elegant act of self-defense right in front of him. That night, the pings on my server turned from green to amber. Full lockdown cascade initiated. Authority escrow violation confirmed. I poured one more cup of coffee, stepped onto my porch, and watched the neighborhood lights dim in perfect waves. Gina thought she could rewrite the neighborhood in her image. The neighborhood was about to rewrite her. Friday arrived with the kind of blue sky perfection Gina loved for photo ops. The city inspector's white truck pulled up to the main gate at 9:15 sharp. I watched from my porch, tablet in hand, as the system logged every moment. The gates didn't budge. The contractor kid inside the guardhouse slammed buttons, swore, then radioed Gina in a panic. Ma'am, the system is in lockdown. Master access suspended. Clause 18C enforcement mode. Gina's SUV screeched into the lot minutes later. Blazer flapping. Pearls bouncing. She tried everything. Her master key card. The CloudGuard app. Even banging on the gate like it would magically open. Nothing. The inspector waited 13 minutes in his truck before stepping out. Clipboard in hand. Looking less than impressed. Ma'am, we need full access to test the stormwater containment and emergency protocols, or I can't sign off. Gina's voice cracked into that high-pitched register every Karen hits when reality bites. It's a temporary glitch. We're modernizing. Give us 20 minutes. The inspector checked his watch. I have 3 more communities today. If the systems aren't operational, I have to note access obstruction and credential instability. That's an automatic denial for the grant and possible insurance surcharge. Panic rippled outward. Residents who'd been stuck inside started gathering. Kids late for school. Delivery drivers honking. The mail truck idling helplessly. Gina tried to rally them with her usual speech. This is for the greater good. We're building a better future. But the crowd wasn't buying it anymore. Mrs. Patel shouted, "My lawn is dead because of your future." Someone else yelled, "Lila Voss never locked us out." Gina spun toward me. I'd walked over quietly, tablet still in hand, and pointed an accusing finger. "This is her doing. She's holding us hostage." I didn't raise my voice. I simply held up the tablet so everyone could see the red message pulsing. Unsecure transition detected. Authority escrow violation. Clause 18C active. Awaiting legal response. I documented the risks 6 times, I said calmly. You chose to ignore them. The system is protecting itself because that's what I built it to do. The inspector raised an eyebrow. Clause 18C. That's in your governing documents. The liaison nodded grimly. Yes, sir. We skipped the required escrow. Legally, the systems are locked until Vossline consents to transition. Gina's face went from red to purple. This is extortion. I'll sue. The inspector just sighed, logged the denial, and climbed back in his truck. Good luck with that. My report goes straight to the city. You just cost the neighborhood $30,000 in grants and higher insurance. The rest of the day was pure HOA apocalypse. Gina's phone rang nonstop. Trustees, lawyers, furious residents. The group chat became a live meltdown. My kids miss school. How are we supposed to get groceries? Gina, fix this or we're recalling you. She tried one last desperate Hail Mary, ordering the Cloud Guard team to force reboot the entire network. They tried. The system answered by isolating the community center completely, doors sealed, lights out, AC off. The contractor kid finally threw his tablet down in defeat. It's like the building is alive and it hates us. I stayed on my porch, watching the drama unfold like a perfectly scripted play. No bloating, no victory dance, just the quiet satisfaction of watching consequences land exactly where they belonged. Gina March, queen of Community First, had turned the entire neighborhood into her personal hostage video. And every resident now knew exactly who wrote the script she'd ignored. By sunset, the trustees had called an emergency closed session. My inbox pinged with a single polite request from legal. Please advise on remediation timeline. I replied with the same professional chill I'd used for 12 years. Per licensing agreement. Attached is the itemized remediation invoice. Payable to Vossline Systems. Net 30. The total, $420,000. Line items for controlled deactivation. Firmware reprogramming. Credential escrow reconfiguration. And legal compliance review. No emotion. Just facts. Gina would see it soon enough. And somewhere in the code. The passive credential line I'd built in years ago waited patiently, gray. Uneditable. Impossible to delete. It didn't control anything anymore. It just existed. A quiet reminder that some things outlast blazers. Pearls. And power trips. Monday morning the neighborhood woke up different. Gina's white SUV was nowhere to be seen. The official email from the board was a masterpiece of legalese, pending internal review of procedural gaps in credential oversight. Translation: Gina March had been placed on administrative leave before her second latte of the day. No press release. No LinkedIn farewell. Just a hollow silence where her daily virtue-signaling posts used to live. Residents started talking openly now. The same people who'd clapped for her modernization were suddenly posting throwback photos of the time I fixed the pool during the heat wave or kept the gates open during the big storm. Mrs. Patel brought me another plate of cookies. I was wrong about her. You were always the one who actually cared. I just smiled and accepted the plate. I didn't need applause. I never wanted it. The system had already spoken louder than any Facebook rant ever could. The trustees met behind closed doors for 4 hours. My passive logs caught the highlights, frantic attempts to find loopholes in the charter, lawyers muttering about indemnification under Section 3.4b, and finally the resigned acceptance that Clause 18C was ironclad. They approved a new access protocol, not to me personally, but to Vossline Systems as a passive admin credential. It sat at the bottom of every dashboard now, a thin gray line no one could delete. Legacy license holder, Vossline Systems. It didn't control anything. It didn't need to. It just existed, embedded in the bones of the neighborhood like a fingerprint that refused to be erased. Gina's name, meanwhile, vanished. Her profile scrubbed from the HOA site. Her email bounced with the generic, no longer with the organization reply. The contractor circles started calling it the Harmony Grove incident. Slack threads circulated screenshots of the lockdown messages. Even the facility's newsletter out of Atlanta ran a quiet think piece. Legacy systems and the myth of disposable expertise. The punchline was always the same. Some president thought she could delete the person who built the foundation. The foundation disagreed. I never returned to the community center. I didn't need to. Every December, right around 3:15 p.m., during the annual fire drill recertification sweep, my phone gives a single soft ping routed through the legacy ventilation controller on the 7th floor of the maintenance building. It's not from any human. The system sends it itself. Legacy credential active. Override integrity intact. Source, Vossline Systems. A little green flag in a sea of automated routines. I never reply. I don't have to. It's not asking permission. It's just checking in with its architect, reminding me that despite the new dashboards, the rebranded apps, and the fresh coats of HOA paint, the heartbeat is still mine. They could have honored it. They could have transitioned respectfully. Instead, they tried to gut it, and now the neighborhood carries a quiet ghost in its code. A reminder that systems don't care about titles or meetings or pastel blazers. They care about continuity. They care about respect. And sometimes the best kind of power isn't the one that shouts from the podium. It's the one that simply stays, bills you for the damage, and keeps the lights on long after the loudest voice has been forgotten. Gina never came back. Last I heard, she'd moved to a different subdivision 2 counties over. Still president of some other HOA, still posting about modernization. I wish her well. Really. Because somewhere out there another quiet resident is probably logging warnings she'll ignore. Another Clause 18C is waiting patiently in the firmware. And another neighborhood is about to learn the hard way that you never, ever mess with the person who taught the system how to breathe. As for me, I sit on my porch most evenings now, watching the streetlights come on exactly when they should. The gates open smoothly for every resident. The sprinklers dance in perfect balance. The neighborhood is peaceful again. The rules still exist, but they feel different, less like a cage and more like a promise kept. And every time a new board member asks about updating the legacy stuff, someone always points to that thin gray line on the dashboard and says the same 4 words. You might want to read Clause 18C first. I never asked for recognition. I never needed revenge. I just built something that was meant to last. And in the end, that was enough. The system still knows me. The neighborhood still breathes. And somewhere in the code, a quiet heartbeat keeps ticking, steady, patient, and utterly unbreakable.